Live on YouTube.
Welcome, everybody, to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. It is Wednesday, May 7th, and we are here to learn about state IT cybersecurity with some colleagues from the Agency of Digital Services. So I'm Rep. Kathleen James from Manchester.
Richard Bailey from Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow in Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Clipner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
Maura Spilia, Wyndham 2.
Jack Locker, Committee Assistant.
Lisa Gobbin, JFO IT Consultant.
John Kelly, ADS Chief Staff.
Great. And okay, for the record, I wasn't sure who's going to be presenting.
For the record, I am John Toney. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for ADS.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us. So we're really here just for a basic, intro and overview, whatever you are able to tell us about cybersecurity for our state IT systems.
Great, thank you. This is my first time before this committee, and this is my first time giving testimony before the legislative body. So I will do my very best, and I appreciate the invitation. Thank you for taking the time to hear what we're doing in the cybersecurity team, with the cybersecurity team. So I've been with the state for 1 year and 2 weeks now, so I'm still learning where everything is. I don't want to dive too much on myself, but I wanted to present my qualifications to the committee. I graduated from Michigan State University. I completed the executive CISO program at Carnegie Mellon University's Heinz College of Public Policy. I have 19 years. I'm in my 19th year of government service. I formerly was a special agent with the U.S. Secret Service, and I was trained as a hacker as part of the network intrusion response program. And they give everything a cool nickname, so that was called Nitro. I led the Philadelphia Electronic Crimes Task Force when I was in the Philadelphia field office. I was lucky enough to be selected as cyber investigations instructor for the FBI Academy in Budapest. I served as a global director of incident response, threat intelligence, and forensics at Procter & Gamble in Cincinnati. And I also worked at both KPMG and EY.
Great,
So,
thank you. And you said you've been with at ADS for just a little more than a year?
yes, tomorrow will be my 1 year and 1 month.
Congratulations.
May I ask, with a resume like that, what brilliant hiring officer at the state of Vermont managed to land you?
That would be Andrea, our deputy secretary. It was through a person we do in common.
No. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
So we're a questioning type of committee. So we'll raise our hands and ask questions as we go through your slides, if that's okay.
Beautiful.
For later, we all forget our questions. So
I appreciate that. And if I don't see you because the screen is small, please help get my attention.
Sounds good.
2 more things. I was fortunate to be selected for a very rare thing. In a few weeks, I will represent Vermont, and I'm going to the FBI CISO Academy. So I go to Quantico for training. And I'm currently a visiting fellow and a member of the Cyber and Tech Council at the National Security Institute at George Mason University. So I want to talk about my team. I watched the testimony yesterday. You had Mark, the CTO, and Josiah, Chief Data Officer, in with you. Their teams are much larger. So my team is very modest, and we work very hard to secure the enterprise as well as we can. This is our org chart. David Kaiser is my deputy, and David spent more than 20 years and retired as a full colonel. Next slide. So over the course of this year, and did this a couple months ago to find this number, my team will monitor either directly through our tools or through our sensors, monitor 358.8 billion events. Those events could be someone logging onto their machine, an email message, an alert from an endpoint, an API connection. All of those events funnel through my security department. One of the successes that we've had in my short tenure is we have developed and published the first ever cybersecurity foundations policy for the state of Vermont. The URL is listed in your document, and it was developed by my team. And then we vetted that. It was signed by Secretary Riley Hughes, Secretary of AOA, and then DHR. So it was a collaborative effort across the executive branch to stand up kind of, where we come from on everything cybersecurity and how we operate. And that's something brand new for the state.
Jack, excuse me one sec. Jack, could you find that, send it to the whole committee and post it on the,
What am I finding?
if you go to his testimony, page 6, you'll see the link.
Got it.
Not urgent. Just when you get a sec, maybe send it to all of us and it's obviously okay to post it with your testimony on our webpage.
Absolutely.
Great. We will do it.
And with that foundations policy enables me and my team to roll out configuration management standards, other standards of the state. So we have consistency, we have accountability across ADS and across all of our vendors, suppliers, and partners. So just a few weeks ago, I forget which date, 4/28, I signed our first configuration management policy. That will be up shortly, and I'd be happy to share that with the committee as well. That'll be published on my ADS security website. So talking about what our days look like, and these numbers were valid as of yesterday. I didn't do these this morning, but as of yesterday, in cybersecurity events from an email perspective across the state, we prevented 6,365 attacks, and I won't read you all the numbers, but in the last 9 months, over 52,000 email phishing attacks, BEC attacks were identified by my team, our tools, and 16 made it through, 16 phishing, but that's actually reduced quite a bit because we purchased a new tool last July, and we got that tuning right in the sweet spot, hopefully. And we get 0 to 1 monthly right now of phishing events that slip through our email exchange.
And I'm sorry, I was a small hand up that the chair acknowledged. but,
Yeah, sorry, we had a silent hand up, quiet nod.
probably,
Sorry.
Of the 16 that made it through, were the users aware enough of this type of thing so that they did not take the bait, or did any of them click?
I don't have the exact numbers. I'll have to go back and find how many did click, but not everybody did click.
Thank you.
When I talk about endpoint defense, an endpoint is anything from the desktops, laptops, notebooks, and even Microsoft Azure or Microsoft servers, where we put a small piece of software called an agent on the machine to monitor for malware, for behavior-based oddities that can alert us that there may be something strange going on with the machine. So as of yesterday, we had 210 alerts, and they show up on a console that either my team or our contracted security provider who assists us in a co-location scenario triages all those alerts, 7 days, 11/16, and the last 90, 41,000 alerts that the security team wades through to look for patterns, look for concerns, malware, things of that nature. So when I got here, we were actually, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. This is Scott Campbell. I'm not on screen because I'm in a hospital bed at the moment. But could you define endpoint defense again, please?
So an endpoint defense. We have an endpoint agent, which is a very small piece of software that runs in the background on your Microsoft Windows machine, or it runs on a server. And all the data that goes through that machine runs across that endpoint agent, and it looks for anomalies. It looks for signatures of malware, ransomware, things of that nature. It also looks for anomalies. For example, we have one agency that when they're printing checks, it spools up, 1,500, 5,000 print jobs in a matter of a few seconds. And that agent lights up saying, is this propagation, and how for us to look at, because it's unusual behavior for the normal day-to-day usage.
So it's in effect a flag that that tells you you have to look at it. You have to have a person look at it more closely.
Correct. And if the flag is severe enough, I instruct my team and then our partners to contain the machine. So I'll shut the machine down. It doesn't damage the information. It doesn't delete any information from the machine, but it prevents it from talking to other machines till I figure out what's going on.
And you mentioned Windows machines or servers. A lot of people use MacBooks. Is there any difference there?
We don't have footprints for MacBooks in ADS. Maybe other parts of the states do, but we do not.
Oh, okay. Actually, I guess I'm thinking of legislators. So, and you're not, and that's not part of your bailiwick. Okay.
Correct.
Thanks. Yep. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you for the question. Did I miss any other questions?
I don't think so.
Okay. So when I got here a year ago, our critical alert response time was actually really good. Industry standard for a critical alert is 15 to 30 minutes, and Vermont was answering the call within 9 minutes. We got that down to less than a minute. And last quarter, we had no critical alerts whatsoever because we're always working and always tuning. That doesn't mean the big one can't happen right now, but we've been very fortunate. We've worked very hard to get these critical alerts down. Cyber defense isn't about building castles, it's speed to problem. This is the best way that I can characterize it. I've focused on, in my first year, statistics and accountability matter to me. So I wanted to improve on our resolution and our customer service to how fast that my team handles tickets, handles questions, handles problems. And some of those tickets and problems can be directly handled by the security team. Sometimes we need to work in collaboration with an agency or another part of ADS to create a broader fix. And from this time last year to now, we've improved our speed to resolution by 56.3%. Likewise with vulnerabilities, that was an area of concern for me when I arrived, and we have identified and reduced the vulnerabilities across our enterprise footprint by 75.3% in the last 9 months, which is huge.
Mr. Tony, I have a question. I was trying to skip ahead in your testimony to make sure you're not going to get there. So if you're going to get there, just say, I'm going to get there. I was just wondering about state employee training. So how do all the state agencies and departments handle basic cybersecurity training so that folks know, don't click on this. This is how, hackers can, I don't know. At my job I have in the real world, we take this online, it's like an online class and the modules come and we all watch them. I assume that's the same for state
Through the LMS. Yep.
government.
It is. Thank you for the question. I did not address this later, but that's a great question. We do have mandatory cybersecurity training that's taken every quarter. I sit down with my training advisor and I kind of pick the modules like, okay, for January, February, March, I want this module. The next quarter, I want this module. And we metric that. Actually, Secretary Riley Hughes wants to see those statistics every single week when I report to her about the completion of those cybersecurity modules. In addition to that, for teams that have greater risk, we run tabletop exercises, especially within ADS. Okay, something goes boom or something's on fire. How are you responding? And both of those pieces are not just good practice, best practice. They're also required by our insurer. So for me to be in compliance with our insurer within the state, and I work with risk management and also the Attorney General's office to make sure that we're checking all the boxes, because what I can't have happen under my watch is something happens, we rely on insurance, and then we're not compliant with the terms of our policy. So that's very important to me.
And I assume that you have somebody on call or some way of alerting folks. You know, if I wake up at 3 in the morning and I can't sleep and I'm answering some email and I click on a link, what if I were a state employee and I submitted a ticket at like on Sunday afternoon or at 3 in the morning or something?
It depends what the nature of the ticket would be with whether
Okay.
it's answered. If it was a ticket for a matter of malware or something that you think's traumatic, our partner would pick it up because it would be routed a certain way. If it
Gotcha.
was, hey, I can't connect to this website, it would wait for the next business day.
Okay, thank you.
And that prompts a question to me. You handle, you work in the executive branch. Do you handle cybersecurity for the legislature also? Or is that?
I do not.
Okay. So that's all legislative operations.
Correct. We meet monthly and we talk through things and we have a good relationship, but I do not handle that.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought, but I just wanted to be clear. Thanks.
Kevin's coming in tomorrow, Scott.
Oh, excellent. Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
So the next piece is about compliance. So half of my team, if you look back at that org chart, are my compliance staff, and we are responsible for reporting IT controls to the IRS, the FBI, DOJ, Health and Human Services, Social Security, FEMA, the VA, Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and CISA. As a state, we take a lot of federal money, and we have to uphold to the standards of federal cybersecurity controls to get those dollars. So that's a big part of my team's job. And the little box on the right, I actually had a conversation with the former administration's executive office of the president last year about nationally harmonizing the IT controls across the agencies. And then the election came and that all kind of fizzled and disappeared. But it was good to be heard and to, have the ability to talk directly with the office of the president. So I'm often asked about emerging threats. Who's attacking us? Who's coming for us? What are my concerns as a CISO? So what threat actors that I see, and I've seen since my time in the Secret Service and doing online undercover work, organized crime. Now, organized crime are, you see it in the telecom when we're all getting the fake phone calls. We get the same sort of thing in security operations. And organized crime work independently as groups. They also work in conjunction. I promise you that the Russians work hand in hand with the organized crime cyber groups within Russia, China as well, Vietnam as well, and others. You may hear the term APT, that's Advanced Persistent Threat. When you hear APT, think of a state actor. Think of Russia. Think of China. Think of Vietnam, Iran. On occasion, we see signatures from hacktivists that may not appreciate something political or some social issue that they feel needs to be handled differently, and they will use any platform they can, including defacement of websites or DOSing, denial of service attacks against state resources. Unknown actors. This is what's been sticky for me last year, unknown actors hiding inside public address space. So hackers will sign up for AWS, Amazon accounts, Microsoft accounts, or work with small hosting companies and launch their attacks from the US. And that sometimes is really difficult because AWS and Microsoft and the like are more interested in protecting their own brand than really chasing these bad guys down. And this is what gives me fits sometimes. And then also, I worry about reconnaissance and impersonation of you and me and JK sitting in the room. The impersonation and identity theft and the ability of AI to mimic people. They get a hold of someone's personal email address or other identifiers, and they can cause a lot of havoc, impersonating state employees or constituents. That's also a big concern for me. On the right of this, the collateral I sent you is a notice. A few months ago, we suffered a watering hole attack. A watering hole attack is where a hacker will go off. I guess the best way to explain it, in this case, the hacker took over the menus at a Chinese restaurant in Burlington. And they infected the Chinese restaurant menu with malware. So when state employees would innocently go to determine if they wanted the orange chicken or the General Tso's, that malware was being introduced into state systems, which my team's caught. That's a very unique and novel, and actually I find it kind of fun chasing these things down.
And so they were looking specifically for Vermont.gov emails? Is that what you're saying?
No, so I don't know their motivation of who they were looking for, but they infected the Chinese restaurants' menus very near a large state facility.
Good.
And so I worked with the DPS and had one of the troopers that I know go out and talk to the family that owned the restaurant and say, hey, you have this problem, and spent 10 p.m. at Saturday night, I get a call from the restaurant saying, hey, can you help us get through this? And then I worked with the Attorney General's office as noticed by this letter, sending a takedown order to the hosting company that was hosting the malware. So we work to be proactive too. And when the community is exposed, we work to notify the community that, hey, there's a problem here. I don't believe in just holding the information, protecting just the state. If constituents or community members are exposed that I can help with, I make those notifications all the time.
So I have a question too. So the way this happened is through the QR code that the restaurant had for patrons to access the menu. Is that correct?
So the menu is posted on their website. The bad actors hack the website and then introduce bad code onto the menu.
Oh, so it's the online menu. Okay.
Yes.
I see. All right. Thanks.
So the bad guys, they're after education student records. When you trade identities on the dark market, I did that in a previous career, identities of children are especially valuable because they don't run credit reports as regularly. And so I would pay 5 times as much if I was buying in an undercover capacity. If I was buying an identity of a child, it would be 5 times the cost of an adult. Business email compromise attacks, where they attempt to get state resources to change bank account numbers and routing numbers through an email. An example of this they would work through a construction contractor, take over the construction contractor who has a legitimate business agreement with the state, and then send an email from a legitimate business email saying, hey, Vermont, we've switched from bank A to bank B. We need you to change our routing and bank account numbers. And that money siphons off under BEC to where the bad guys now directed. $55.5 billion have been lost in the last decade to BEC compromises. Traffic cameras and traffic light controllers, we had some of that downstate right after I got here. Really was not successful, but they were attempts that we could see. Hacking email accounts, harvesting credentials, as I mentioned before, the hacktivists could get on a website and deface it and make a public statement. They're going to. Ransomware, remote access Trojans called rats, droppers, banking Trojans, all of that nasty stuff that we experience day to day. Theft of PII and personal health information, and then edge penetration attacks, meaning bad guys will flood very short bursts of packets. They will send to an edge device to see if they can jam it or lock it down, and they're testing, they're footprinting. They're seeing where on the edge they can get around. So threat intelligence, this is how I start my day every single day, getting up and reading threat intelligence. Threat actors are changing their, what I call TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures by the hour, or depending on what targets they're going after. With a lot of changes in government in general, we are going to need to be more self-sufficient at gathering threat intelligence. And I'm looking into options for that. Dark markets, I know that most of you have probably heard of Silk Road. They're not static entities. So a dark market will be up at a certain URL. It may be there for 2 weeks. It may be there for 6 months. It'll be taken down and moved, and knowing where it moved is part of the game. We've had an instance in Vermont during my time where someone was purporting to sell stolen Vermont information, to which I need to go get a sample of that information and verify if it was really stolen, if it's genuine information, or is just publicly available information that the bad actors are trying to sell in the dark market for some Bitcoin and skate. And in this case, it was the latter. It was publicly available information. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was breached. But the actor was trying to scam other bad guys. And I'm working with the Vermont Intelligence Center. I spoke with Ron LaFawn over there, and the Secretary of State's office. I have a very close relationship with Secretary of State to explore a unified intelligence platform. So we can share intelligence, we're not repeating effort, and we can protect Vermonters as a whole rather than a siloed approach to how we respond to cyber threats. I spoke briefly before about collaboration. So we have a monthly branch coordination call. Joe Paquin, myself, Marcia, and Rain get on the phone for an hour, and we talk through if there's anything we can help each other with, or there are new changes, or we're having problems with a piece of technology or a vendor. I've worked with the state treasurer's office because cybersecurity controls that I put in place affect our bond rating. And so I make sure to work closely with them whenever they have a question or a concern, especially when it's coming from Moody's. I've worked with the state attorney general's office on vetting and making contracting decisions for a few things. We secured the election. During the last general election, I worked very closely with the Secretary of State's office, and I will tell you, Saturday night before the election, we're all on the phone at 9 and 10 o'clock at night talking to Amazon, making sure we got our ducks in a row. And it was successful in the fact that we were not breached, and the secretary was able to certify the election first. We had no issues in Vermont. We work closely with both the State Guard and the National Guard. My deputy, as I said, is a retired colonel from the Air Force, and he generally takes the lead as our liaison with the State Guard and National Guard. And based on my national security experience, I work closely with the Vermont Intelligence Center, the state police, and FEMA and the Vermont Emergency Management Group. And I think that's it.
It's really interesting. Anybody have additional questions? Reverend Campbell? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Thanks. I'm also wondering to what extent you and the state generally, I guess it would be you, coordinates with other sort of critical services like electric utilities, banking, I don't know, just critical public services that are not run by the state.
So I have spoken with the utilities. It's a very tough subject in Vermont because the utilities don't want to let states play in their space. Whether it's, they want to hold they have their own security teams, they have their own procedures, and they do their very best to keep us at arm's length, especially with resilience, because they are working with the federal government. It's very difficult. As for banking, I actually have a lot of confidence in the banking system because New York State and their cybersecurity rules are fantastic. And I've worked in the banking sector during my time at EY and KPMG, and their security policies, procedures, controls are very specific. And we've not had any banking issues since I've been here.
Well, another sector that occurs to me is hospitals. UVM had a very costly cyber attack, I don't know, a year or two ago, whenever it was. And I guess I'm not thinking about, the state running things at all, but I'm just thinking about collaboration and back and forth, sharing best practices and that sort of thing.
Good to answer that.
Yeah.
So we do have a cybersecurity advisory council, which was formed a couple of years ago. And that's their mission is to collaborate with electric utilities and what we consider, essential supply chain, stuff like that. It's made up of folks from the executive branch, folks from power grid, higher ed. And there was a report that you guys should all have from them this year about
We do.
what they've been working on and some suggestions they have for the future. So it's tied to ADS sort of, but it's more its own thing. It's not quite like the AI council where they advise the division. This is strictly for that communication between the power grid and those type of companies and state.
It's our
Okay, I think I missed that report actually, but I'll look for it. Is that John Kelly? I can't see him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott, it was in the big confusing slew of what reports are we supposed to get, not get. Let's get
Yeah.
them all up at the beginning of the session.
Yep, great.
But
Okay.
it's on our reports and resources tab.
All right, fantastic. I'll look for it. Thanks.
I just went to double check.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Within a few weeks of my arrival, so probably this week last year, a healthcare system in Vermont was attacked by ransomware and they were completely down. And I did coach them to my best ability through the ransomware. I had to actually take action pretty quickly to segregate their connections from ADS to ensure the ransomware did not spread to the state and disable state systems. And then I worked with the COO directly. We were on the phone daily to coach them as they brought in and then to do so.
You froze just for a minute.
Okay.
Oh yeah, right when you said what you did.
A health system in Vermont was attacked by ransomware. My first action of duty was to protect the state enterprise, which is disconnecting access with the health system. And then I was on the phone daily over the weekend at midnight with the COO of the health system, helping to coach them through the ransomware event because my background's in incident response. And worked with them as they brought in an outside contracted incident response firm and worked with I determined everything was safe and bring them back. Did I freeze again?
Just briefly.
I think we got it.
I think we got it this time.
Okay.
Rep. Torrey.
You mentioned the desirability of student records, and I think we had a breach of the Power School program here in Vermont. Were you involved in that at all?
I was not, other than being briefed, since it was a third-party company and I had absolutely no ability to affect the breach. I was asked for my counsel on what I thought was truthful or not truthful response, and I don't feel that Power School is completely forthcoming in their report, and I wouldn't be satisfied if I were you.
That actually reminds me, I'm glad somebody brought that up because AOE was supposed to get back to us and they didn't. So a sticky note is being created. We never did hear back on that. We had asked to find out what student data was compromised and how many districts were impacted, and I don't think we ever got that information back. Did we? I don't think so. Okay, we'll find out from AOE. Other questions for Mr. Tony? Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite hear, you said you didn't think Power School was completely above board?
I don't believe they provided the level of detail they should in the circumstance.
Good.
All right. Other questions? All right. Thank you so much for joining us. It's great to meet you and appreciate the time that you spent in putting together a presentation and coming to talk with our committee. And yeah, appreciate your time.
Appreciate meeting you all. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for your work.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Yeah. Jack, let's stay live for 1 minute. I was actually busy while you guys were on the field trip this morning. So I went to Senate Natural and I always forget what they're Senate Natural Resources
And energy.
Environment.
Natural resources and energy.
Okay, SNRE. Anyway, I went to the Senate and they wanted a walkthrough of S50, our solar bill, what changes we made from the Senate side. And so I walked them through all of our changes and they seemed amenable. And the Senate being the Senate, they've already passed it.
With the amendment?
Yep, with further amendment. So, oh no, this is the solar bill. Yeah. So, S50.
So Hillman.
There was a Senate amendment for that, correct?
They put a floor amendment on it. I'm just getting there. So
Okay.
they took the bill as we passed it out of our committee, as passed the House. They didn't touch any of that, but they have now added their further proposal of amendment. And Ellen is going to come in and walk us through it on Friday, I think. Right, Jack?
Yep.
On Friday. But in general, the issue we had about, so I'm just trying to get it open here. Okay. The whole issue about reassigning your recs. So, you know, we went from, they had it, you could change at any time once. We changed it to, you can change once within 120 days. They're okay with that. So the new policy going forward is going to be at any time within 120 days of commissioning, you can reassign your rec once. And what they added is that in addition, a customer who, and I'll send this to everybody, a customer who owns a net metering system that was commissioned between January 1, 2023 and July 1, 2025 can change once if you do it before this coming September 2nd. So I'll forward that to everybody, but basically they have added a one-time window between let's say this passes, it'll take effect either on passage or July 1. I can't remember what we put in. It's going to allow a couple of months for anybody who has a newish system to retroactively to January 2023 to say, I made a mistake. And then that window closes on September 2nd. When we walk through the amendment, PUC is going to be in the room, Rev will be in the room, and the utilities will be in the room. But just from asking around, I think everybody's going to be okay with this. PUC is fine with it. Utilities are okay with it. So basically, if you remember the letter we got from, Mr. Unger. Yeah, so this would allow somebody like him to get one chance at a retroactive fix.
So
I'm sending this to everybody right now.
we got to check the effective date of the bill. Was it upon passage or was it January, July 1?
July 1. So basically it's 2 months,
And we gave till September,
September 2nd.
September 2nd,
Yeah, so it's 2 months
2 months.
for PUC to reach out to. My guess would be that to folks that they know are aggrieved, maybe we can ask them about that, but
But the department had said that they had been permitting honest mistakes to
Change.
to change so that the number of aggrieved parties out there should be.
minimal.
Yeah.
It should, I would imagine it would be minimal. I don't anticipate there's going to be a big rush of folks who commissioned within the last 2 years. I think first in line will be if there's a handful of folks that, and one thing we can ask the PUC is how they're going to let people know about this.
Well, they must have a record of people.
People who appealed, maybe.
Well, no, but somebody should have a record of who signed a application with retaining the rec and people who had not retained the recs.
Mhm. So that's that. So, our options, sort of as time runs out at the end of the session, if we are all okay with that final Senate amendment, if we're like, yep, then we can simply concur with the Senate and bill's done. I think we bring it to the floor one more time and then off to the gov. If we don't agree or we want to change it further, the whole bill has to go back to the Senate. Okay.
I don't like the retroactive.
Hmm?
I don't like retroactive. I think that just opens up a can of worms that isn't necessary.
Well, we've got until Friday to ask questions about it.
Well,
Because it doesn't affect just, one thing. It affects the utilities, it affects everything down the line. And I don't think it's necessary, especially if they're having such a narrow window. What is it they're looking to accomplish in Berlin?
I think that a few people who, I'm not sure that the PUC has been as flexible as maybe
Maybe they can provide that solution.
as we
That
heard.
number.
Yeah. So I think that people, I don't think it's been easy at the PUC actually to go and get this reassigned. I'm not sure they're as flexible as maybe our brief conversation with them implied. So my guess would be that there's probably a handful of people who
I'm open
use
to
really-
changing my mind. First glance, I don't like the.
Yeah. Well, the decision we'll have to make is whether we want to put the whole bill at risk. those become the decisions we have to think about at the last minute here. If it starts moving back and forth between the House and Senate, the whole bill could just die or get hung up or run out of time. So it's just, those are all the things we want to think about. Is it, how strongly do you object, and is it worth stopping the bill in its tracks for? And we can all start having our conversations, right? Like, I was glad to hear the PUC was okay with it. Doesn't sound like the utilities are going to fuss. Yeah, Rep. Putner?
Talking about January 1st of 2023. Is that how far back it reaches?
Let me see.
I mean, I wonder how many systems total have been put in since then. And of those, like what,
It's gotta be a small number.
I mean, like the number of people where they got it wrong, it could be half a dozen.
Yeah, and I mean, they should have that information to provide to us that
Yeah.
might help.
I thought the 4 cent debit on the recs started with net metering 2.5, which became effective end of July 31, August 1st of 2024. But I would have to review that. I have my dates. The one constituent that reached out to me was a facility that came online in, I think, October or November of 24.
When was there beef with the rec assignment?
That they paid 4 cents. They paid the 4 cents kilowatt hour on everything they generate, even what they use in house instantaneously. And so if they happen to generate 500 kilowatt hours, $20 bill, because they retained the rep. And I'm not sure whether they intended to or not. I never got that back from the installer.
So they'd be within that window if they
It'd be
made a
within
mistake.
that window, but I'd have to review what went on prior to that date.
Yeah, and they could reach out to Pease, if they fall within this window.
It's, well, that meter 2.0, I just have to review. But I mean, if people got $20 a month coming for about, actually, when they generate more in the summertime, then they could be in the, not 500, but the 2,000 or 3,000. 2,000 a month.
Yeah. So if the issue or their complaint has to do with the fact that the rec, they made a mistake with the rec, they would be able to change that. If it's to do with like net metering rates or whatever, that's not to,
No, that's, it was just that rec,
assignment.
the rec assignment. If they retained it, you pay. If you gave it to the utilities, it was
You get a
zero.
break. Yeah.
You get charged nothing. The remuneration on what they generate vary each year, but I think it was annually or biannually. Annually, they set the
Set the rate.
every 2 years.
Mhm.
They set the average rate one or melded rate one. Excuse me, melded residential rate.
Okay. So I will find out. So we haven't had a concur with further proposal of we haven't had a further proposal of amendment from the Senate yet. So I'll check in with Betsy Ann and find out. I think we walked through it. I think it's just the whole deal again. I think we walk through it. I think we have a committee vote and it comes back to the floor. And then if we concur, that one thing I do know for sure is that if we vote in here to concur and then we bring it to the floor and the House votes to concur, so including this new language from the Senate, it goes straight to Gov. if and we could have split committee vote in here and still send it to the floor, and the House could vote to concur, and it would still go to the gov. So it would only go back to the Senate if our committee and the House votes not to concur. Was that clear? Was that clear? Okay.
Yeah, but if we lose the bill, we really, the bulk of the bill was 15 to 25 KW.
Mm-hmm.
The assignment of recs was really a amendment that we added on, and or they came across with.
It came over with the Senate bill, so it was a part of the bill from the get-go. Now they're adding this one little extra. They want to tack on this extra thing, and that happens a lot at the end of the session. You know, bills start bouncing back and forth, and at some point, you're done bouncing back and forth, and both sides agree, and it goes off to the governor, or one side says we're not going to concur. And this is not the kind of bill that would probably go to a conference committee. We only have this one remaining tiny thing. Sometimes you run out of time as well. And then let's see, 458. I'm going to check in with Senator Harrison, see how they're doing on that. So I ran into her in the cafeteria the other day and told her I really hope they get that bill across the finish line.
That was the EDS reporting bill.
CEDS reporting bill.
Any update on that?
Secretary Riley Hughes said she supports the underlying bill. So I'm going to check in with her later today and see how, I think I hope that our Senate committee is ready to just move that. And I don't know whether our suggested additional language about data sales is going to slow it down or what. But, well, we have to find out. I have to find out. You guys can ask for it. I don't have any real info.